seems obvious, actually, that they should be helping out. And in fact, Bayer has supported a portion of the MS nurse at Auckland for a long time, and Biogen used to. Most of all of the companies are based in Australia, and there they have some complex issues for funding of nurses with support from drug companies. And it's complicated, but the issue is funding directly, MS nurses directly in Australian hospitals is seen as a way of encouraging use of particular treatments. So it's been frowned upon. We have, though, approached the companies about this, and we have potential access through they have special funds for separate projects that potentially we can tap into to fund a portion of a nurse. So it looks like that might fly, getting bits of MS nurse support for different parts of the country from different companies, particularly if the MS Society can help as well. But see, the difficulty with Auckland MS might support Auckland, but not all of the other societies can support nurses necessarily in other parts of the country.
It also depends on which bits of the nurse we fund.
Yes.
I feel I'm in just as much of a neurological desert since I moved from the city to Orewa and had no neurologist at my local hospital or anything. And each time I go there, I get seen by a cardiologist and get said, oh, well, that is of no use. And so that's part of the issue. Now, my question relates to Sabri. I know people in Australia who are on it, and it has always interested me. I was really pleased to see that we got funding for it. But my main issues are double vision, dizziness, and so on. In other words, I can walk 3 kilometres, no problem, because I keep doing it. Is Sabri going to help me, and if so, how do I get into it?
Well, Tysabri will help if you're still having inflammatory changes. And not everyone who's got residual symptoms that may have been there a long time has ongoing inflammatory changes. So, and
definitely having relapses.
And if that's confirmed with changes on an MR scan and you've had a recent relapse, then you're eligible for treatment.
And what's classed as recent? My last one was 2 years ago, and the one before was 2002.
That's not quite recent enough.
Okay, right.
Wallace, you have a comment?
Only about your first point, which in the UK, and this is something that is interesting, I think, to be on any of these treatments, you need to see an MS specialist. So someone that's got interest and training in assessing and managing people with MS. And I take your point that it's frustrating. You go to North Shore Hospital and you can't see a neurologist easily, but the system at the moment in Auckland is very, very good. That the neurologists are all based at Auckland Hospital, and they do visit Taranaki, and I used to fly up to Northland as well when I was here. And we're moving into an era where we're more specialised and not less specialised.
Yeah.
And
we have the situation where the ambulances will not take you to the city hospital, they will only take you to North Shore.
But I think that it's really important that we focus the services centrally and move more towards that actually rather than less.
But I think the point is that we should be moving. We do clinics at North Shore and consult there 3 times a week, so North Shore's not completely bereft of neurologic input. But you may have been unlucky. You hit there at a time when the neurologist didn't happen to be there.
It's usually on a weekend or something. But yeah, so to get a clinic appointment, do you have to do that through a GP?
Yep. It's standard process. It's all arranged centrally, but if the GP in Orewa sends in a request, goes through the central system, and then the clinic appointment, if it's not urgent particularly, will be likely made at North Shore for convenience. But if it's urgent, it's likely to be at Auckland, just because there are a lot more clinics there.
I fall just outside the criteria for the drug. Now, is it possible for me to fund it personally, privately?
It is, actually, yeah.
And so how expensive is it?
How expensive?
Expensive.
Yeah, I think they tend to be a bit shy about it. It's actually in the Pharmac note. I think Tysabri is about $22,000 a year, and fingolimod's more expensive, closer to 30. So, and that's very inexpensive for Tysabri worldwide. So it's a bargain, actually.
I think I've got your noise here. When you say the EDSS score is based on walking and everything else, obviously EDS is based on more than that, like bladder problems and eyesight and stuff like that. So my own EDSS score's made higher by my eyesight. So are Pharmac taking that into account, or are they just using it as a walking test?
Essentially, the way it's being used now is it's a walking test, which is an advantage. In the past, strictly speaking, you score high on the EDSS with bad vision, but the system of scoring the EDSS has changed over time and evolved, particularly for treatment trials, so that high scores on vision and bladder dysfunction and aspects that don't relate to walking get detuned. And we have a process for detuning them now. So basically, even if you're blind, say you can't see anything, but you can still walk 500 metres, your vision gets detuned enough to allow you to score 4.0. And Pharmac didn't actually officially agree to this, but has agreed in practice. So they've been pretty generous about allowing restructuring of the scoring to fit people into this scheme.
Sorry, does that allow aging?
Sorry, can we just...
Sorry, does that allow a change, age change? Sorry, I just wanted to ask if that eyesight, the change in how that's rated, might be because of ageing, to allow for ageing. Is that possible?
No, the score, as you score it, it's scored on changes due to MS. So bad vision due to a developmental problem or cataracts doesn't score on the system. It's due to dysfunction due to MS. People's eyesight tends not to get quite that bad as they get older, does it? I hope.
Hi, I just want to know, with regard to treatment for somebody who's got CIS or progressive multiple sclerosis, how likely is it that they would look at the possibility of using either vitamin D or biotin as a treatment?
Well, there's a lot of interest in vitamin D. And most of us suggest people should take extra vitamin D. The evidence is best that low vitamin D levels increase your risk of MS. The evidence that taking extra modifies the course is not so reliable. And most of us are a bit uneasy about taking mega doses of vitamin D. I say that because the Australians did a preliminary assessment of MR scans. It was a small number of patients, but people on mega doses of vitamin D had more inflammatory changes in the brain than those who weren't on it. So that hasn't been published, but there's just a hint that what seems like a good idea, taking more of it as necessary good in the long term, is I think we need to be careful about. So I think the Australian study, well, a New Zealand study that is looking at extra vitamin D early in the course, and whether that's a good or a bad thing is going to be a critical study, actually. Biotin, that's just new data. Slightly strange data, I have to say. I reviewed the manuscript for the journal it was published in, and they had to modify it quite substantially, but it's intriguing. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of these things turn out to be a fizzer, but it's intriguing. I don't think we know enough about it right now to suggest that everyone should be taking 300 milligrams, which I think was going to be pretty expensive if you did it on 10 milligram tablets. And you can imagine that the 300 milligram tablets that they're talking about producing will be expensive too, I suppose. What you do know is that mega doses of other vitamins have turned out to be poisonous unexpectedly. Sorry? But pyridoxine poisons your nerves if you take excessive amounts. It's water soluble.
If mega doses of vitamin D are dangerous and small doses are ineffective, is there a magic number which is easily clinically available?
Sorry, if there's...
Is there a magic number which is easily clinically available?
No, there's no magic number, but because the only available prescription vitamin D is the 50,000 unit D3, that's what most of us tend to use. And if you take one of those every 2 weeks, that gives you a good load of vitamin D, probably without being excessive. I think there has been the interest in getting vitamin D levels measured in the serum and try and crank it up to high levels. Some people will take a bucketful and still never get their vitamin D levels up. I'm sure they're not doing themselves any good by taking 2 bucketfuls. Others have lowish levels, and it seems a good idea to get them up comfortably within the normal range. The problem is that you have to pay for the serum measurement in New Zealand because the DHB labs have determined that it's a waste of money.
Yeah, I've looked into vitamin D moderately over the last sort of 10 years and followed it. I've tested my own levels, and in the absolute depths of winter, with no supplements at all, it's at around 60, where the range is, 50 to 100. In the peak of summer, I'm at sort of 100 to 120. So naturally, my vitamin D levels are okay. I then researched further about sublingual versus vitamin D pill, and I'd be interested in your comment on that, but talking with nutritionists, etc., if you take a pill, your gut will tend to destroy most of the vitamin D before it's absorbed. Therefore, you want to take it sublingual, which is under the tongue, in order to actually get the D into your body. What are your views on that?
I really don't know enough about it. I think it's been seen as the gut absorption of vitamin D has been seen as a useful safety factor, that your system tends not to absorb more than it really needs. There's no doubt that if you take active vitamin D, because D3 is a proform, it's broken down in the body to form the active molecule. If you take the active form, which some have, and particularly sublingual, potentially you will get toxic levels of vitamin D. I think it's a work in progress, actually, in terms of safety. I mean, we don't know people who've been taking huge doses for long periods in large numbers, so we don't know what proportion might have an unexpected side effect. So I think everything in moderation, I think. Do you have a comment about vitamin D, Wallace? What's happening in London where there's no sunshine?
I can check vitamin D quite easily on patients I see, and I must say I don't have ever seen anyone that's in the normal range. So this is in London, so most people are either deficient or insufficient. And I do treat them with vitamin D, and I give them 2,000 units a day. That's 14,000 a week, so about and then check the level again after 6 months. I crank up the dose. So I try not to do the dose too far above 150
Moderation.
I had a question for, I was really I've been wanting to ask all day to each of the speakers, but the MS statin trial, the mega doses, or what sort of doses are we talking about?
Sorry, the
Mega doses of statins in the MS statin
80
trial.
milligrams, I think, which is a big dose, actually. I would see there'd be not too... I'm amazed that they did a trial where people tolerated 80 milligrams a day. I wonder how many of them actually took it.